Breathes a sigh of relief tonight as authorities say the suspected mail bomber has been caught. 56-year-old Cesar Sayoc of Aventura, Florida, has been arrested and charged with 5 federal crimes for sending mail bombs to prominent Democratic politicians and donors. He faces up to 58 years in prison. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge, she's standing by with the latest. Catherine.
Well, Dana, senior Justice Department officials held a news conference a short time ago here in Washington. The Attorney General said political violence of any form is in conflict with the democratic process.
This is utterly unacceptable. Political violence or the threat of violence is antithetical to our vigorous system of self-government. It is a threat to that respect for law and process that allows our people to accept legislation, elections, court rulings with which they do not agree. This is the central feature of our system of government. You advocate for your beliefs enthusiastically, but we peaceably and lawfully comply with the results.
Federal investigators seized the suspect's van, covering it with a blue tarp earlier today, concealing pro-Trump stickers. Sayoc's social media accounts also praising Republicans, slamming Democrats, and showcasing videos of himself appearing at Trump rallies. The Attorney General was pressed on why Sayoc singled out Democrats and at least one powerful party donor.
Why was he targeting Democrats?
I don't know, other than what you might normally expect. He may have been appears to be a partisan, but that would be determined by the facts as the case goes forward, and I'm not able to comment on that.
The break in the case came when an FBI lab identified a latent fingerprint on one of the suspicious package envelopes addressed to Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. 2 additional pieces of DNA evidence from other packages matched Sayoc, who was already in a law enforcement database because of his past criminal activity.
This is phenomenal work with the greatest pressure under an incredibly tight time frame. The work of the men and women of law enforcement here and the work that was done over the last week is something that should make every American proud and grateful, and it's too early at this stage for us to be discussing motivation in this particular case.
And the FBI Director Christopher Wray also asked the public to keep their eyes and ears open because he indicated they're trying to still determine whether they have all the packages or whether others may be in the system. Dana.
Catherine, I did have a question. Christopher Wray, the FBI director, said like 3 times that these were not hoax devices, that they're doing more diagnostics and forensics. So does that mean if they find out more about these devices that they could increase the charges?
Right. That's a great question. They're trying to determine still whether he intended to construct viable devices that would explode at any path along the postal chain or at the delivery point. Remember, he said there was a cell phone on them and they can often be used as a timer, as a method of detonation. If they were to find that he had tried to do that but had failed because he lacked the expertise, this could then be an aggravating factor in any future prosecution.
We're going to take it around the table. Ed Henry, you have a question for Catherine?
Catherine, good to see you. I wonder, we heard a lot about DNA evidence, and this seems like a pretty quick turnaround. Obviously, there appeared to be the forever stamps, which are self-adhesive, but there was talk in your reporting about maybe saliva. I don't know if that was from the back of the envelope. What do we know about the evidence?
What we know about the evidence, I think, is really twofold. One is that there was a tremendous wealth of evidence because the bombs did not explode. But secondly, and I think more importantly from the FBI director, that they did quickly recover a latent fingerprint on the envelope that carried the pipe bomb that was going to the Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And then they were able to extract DNA from other suspect devices. So they had 3 data points. They all aligned with Cesar Sayoc, and then they had his prints in the database because he has a pretty extensive criminal history and was known to law enforcement. So I don't know at this point whether the DNA was linked from saliva or it may have been a fiber such as, or a hair that was attached to that black electrician's tape. Remember, I was reporting about that yesterday. That's like a magnet for DNA evidence.
Juan?
Catherine, so I'm so curious about his criminal background and history. What I've read in the accounts today over the wire services is that he was arrested several times for things like allegedly stealing a suit from a store and the like. But we don't see any evidence of political violence previously, do we?
Well, what we were able to find in our research today, Juan, is that there was a bomb threat. I believe the date was 2002. I don't have a lot more sort of granularity and texture over whether that bomb threat related to a political idea or motivation. But Director Wray said that they hoped in the coming days to have more information about what the motivation was, whether it was political, and even more importantly, whether he was acting alone or he had help from others who were unaware of what he was planning with the packages.
That's a good point. Pam.
And Catherine, that's what I was going to ask you, that these were so many bombs sent pretty much simultaneously. So they haven't told us anything yet about whether he was acting alone or whether he had an accomplice.
I was trying to ask at the news conference, but never got my question in for some reason, about the level of premeditation, right? Because when you're talking about over a dozen devices, that takes a significant period of time for an individual. Was he doing them just in his van, or was he doing them at his mother's home? We don't quite understand the relationship he has with his mother in South Florida, but we were given the impression that he was spending a lot of time in that van, not quite homeless, but getting sort of close to the edge of that. From my experience, 12 devices takes a significant period of time because you got to cut all the pipes, assemble them with the explosive powder, and then he's got to go through the physical process of addressing all of them and then delivering them. So it would have been nice to have that question get in about premeditation, because that can tell you whether for months he'd been planning this, so maybe he was simply a lone actor, or whether it was in a very short time frame indicating that others may have helped support him.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much. We're going to leave it
Thanks
there
for
with you.
having me.
President Trump just spoke on the South Lawn. We have that tape for you. We can play it for you now.
I did not see my face on the van. I don't know. I heard he was a person that preferred me over others, but I did not see that.
Does that bother you at all?
No, not at all. No, I mean, not at all. No, there's no blame. There's no anything. If you look at what happened to Steve Scalise, that was from a supporter of a different party. You look at what happened on numerous of these incidents, they were supporters of others. No, I'm just really proud of law enforcement. I think they did an incredible job. And I will see you in North Carolina. If they wanted me to, but I think we'll probably pass. Well, I think I've been toned down. You want to know the truth? I could really tone it up because, as you know, the media has been extremely unfair to me and to the Republican Party. I think the media has been very, very unfair in terms of the Republican Party and the way it's been covered. And they understand that. They write articles about that. Many of them admit that. But the media has been unbelievably unfair to Republicans, conservatives, and certainly to me. But with all of that being said, we're winning, so I like that. Thank you very much.
All right, we haven't had a chance to hear from Greg. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, I know we're going to be talking about the political ramifications in the B block, but it's hard when you play that clip not to just kind of like respond to what he is saying. Well, let's first talk about the bumper stickers for once. I have a rule. It's like cats. You know, if you have a few cats, that's okay. But if you have 60 cats, it's a problem. Anybody who's got that many bumper stickers, they're not hiding, right? They're not hiding. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are, it's a good barometer, right? If you see somebody with a lot of crazy bumper stickers, they're probably crazy. And also, I mean, he was arrested for a bomb threat 14 years before Trump became president. So clearly, this guy had to screw loose before he ever discovered the red hat. So I think that there's a lot, he has a paper trail and a criminal trail that clearly shows this guy was just a bad egg, or hombre, as President Trump likes to say.
And given the scope of how many bombs in many states, the work, you can't stress enough what a great job the FBI did. And I mention that because there seemed like almost like a collective sigh of relief from the Attorney General and the FBI Director. When you think about the year both of them had. I mean,
yeah, they needed a win.
Yeah, Christopher Wray, since day one, has been under fire from the president. He's been trying to clean up the mess from James Comey and Andrew McCabe. And as many at this network have said for a long time, we haven't been critical of the men and women who put their lives on the line every day at the FBI to protect us. It's been about the leadership that went partisan in some cases. And I think, let's not forget, in your home state, Parkland, with the shooter, there were signs that the FBI missed as well. So they've had a brutal several months. And in this case, they came together and clearly busted their butts and got to the bottom of this very quickly.
They did, and Kirstjen Nielsen and Homeland Security, the Postal, Secret Service, everybody just worked together, it appeared, in such a great way and moved so fast. And, you know, a point that you made, I've seen in my career, the people who make bombs usually have a history, an escalating pattern of violence. So it does not surprise me that he had this in his past.
Well, you know what's funny is that I keep going back to this, how easy it is to paralyze and create fear in a country. All you need is postage, all you need is pipe, and one person. There's 330 million people. I think you have to be really thankful that something like this is rare.
Right.
Because, you know, anybody can do this, and by the way, there, you know, we have to admit that there will be copycats because there always is.
You can't track every single person.
You know, when we were talking about law enforcement, what struck me was how appropriate Jeff Sessions was in his comments today, because I don't think he played any games. I don't know if he expects to be gone shortly after the midterms, but he said this is clearly a partisan act. And he said, you know, we have had to go after this, and it should not be, and this is not the way that we should conduct ourselves as Americans. Given our political
differences. It also is impressive the new technologies that are available for them to be able to track this down so quickly.
But I don't think it's a surprise that Sessions would say that, because Republicans, they're about process, and process has no political influence. They don't care if the murderer is a Republican or a Democrat. Sure. It's a murderer. So when he's up there and they're asking about it, he goes, yeah, he's a partisan, but I don't care about that. The guy's a bomber. He should fry.
But you check out what they're saying about the caravan and other things. There's the president at the very top who's very political, and I think Sessions clearly separated himself out.
Isn't the other thing, though, that how the country was not paralyzed?
Yeah,
I mean, there were multiple potential bombings, and people were not scared to come out.
Well, we should say that, just to remind you, Secretary Nielsen at the Department of Homeland Security, the NYPD, FBI director all said there could be more out there, so if you see something, say something, be safe, call the authorities, and they'll take care of it. All right, more developments on the breaking news on the arrest of that mail bomb scare suspect up next.
As details of the mail bomb scare suspect are still coming in, some Trump critics in the media are trying to blame the president.
He spends most of his time at his rallies throwing verbal bombs at all the people that receive these bombs in the mail.
There's no ever any acknowledgement of ownership on his part that he's feeling these flames. He said he wants a message of unity, yet he leads rallies where his supporters still chant "lock her up," and he calls the press an enemy of people. Of course this is going to happen.
Of course the president didn't direct this. He's not technically responsible for this, but he is responsible for not just allowing the chant "CNN sucks" at his rallies, but stoking it, making clear that he likes it. And all you need is one, forgive me, crackpot. And looks like one may have emerged.
Well, former President Barack Obama speaking just a few moments ago at a rally in Milwaukee. He did not specifically mention this incident or President Trump, but did talk about civility. Watch.
I'm hoping you think it's wrong to hear people spend years, months, vilifying people, questioning their patriotism, calling them enemies of the people. And then suddenly you're concerned about civility. We can have disagreements, but there has to be a certain code. There has to be certain rules in terms of how we treat each other and operate in the public sphere.
Well, that seems interesting since it was just a week or so ago that Hillary Clinton said there shouldn't be civility basically right now, Pam. And it's rich because Maxine Waters is among the critics, and she said in the last 24 hours that the president is promoting violence when, as I remember it, she was saying, don't let the cabinet rest. Don't let them eat a meal at a restaurant. Let's go after them.
Go after supporters of President Trump, and that's exactly what happened to me. You know, I was at a movie theater, and it was the Maxine Waters rhetoric. These people were verbatim repeating the Maxine Waters talking points. screaming in my face, stopping me. Then after it happened to me, after it happened to Sarah Sanders, after it happened to Kirstjen Nielsen, she doubled down. She said it again. And now for Maxine Waters to continue and blame it on the president is disgraceful. The first thing President Trump did was come out and condemn these actions.
Oh, come on. You know what? This is unbelievable. Even in the middle of the night, last night, President Trump is tweeting out that the press is the one to blame. It's unbelievable. But here's the thing.
And you think
the president is not. What?
President's not to blame.
No, I was about to say, I don't think the president can be directly blamed, but you can't ignore his rhetoric. I'm amazed to hear people who earlier in the week were talking about this is a false flag operation. It's really the Democrats. And I'm talking about prominent Republican voices, Ann Coulter, Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, going on in this way. And now it's, oh, don't pay attention to the president's rhetoric. Even though he says Hillary Clinton's evil, the Second Amendment people, the gun folks can take care of Hillary. Barack Obama was tapping me. He's a liar. All of this horrible stuff. We're not accustomed to it in American life. Dana worked in the White House. Ed, you've covered several presidents. You understand that this kind of rhetoric from the president is different than anyone else in the world speaking. He has made a habit of demeaning and dehumanizing his political opponents.
You had a Chiron on CNN yesterday saying the president will not take responsibility for essentially inciting a bomber. There's no evidence that he incited anyone, Greg.
Oh, no. What about that van, Ed?
I can't.
Did that incite it?
Oh, I think it's clear that his passions were aimed specifically at the targets of Trump's rhetoric.
All right, let Greg in.
Well, it's very hard to take lectures from Democrats about civility. Let's take the long view back, okay? Let's look at decades. Let's look at the last 2 years, which you've called the president Hitler. You've called him racist. You've said he's clinically insane, morally unfit. That's just 2 years, within 2 years. Right. But who has been stoking anger for decades? Who's claimed that the political is personal, meaning they could invade your life. I don't want lectures from people who pardoned the FALN, a terrorist group, who justified the murder of police officers, who allowed them to flee, killers to flee. They said nothing about Assassination Theater in Central Park. They said nothing about the assassination revenge fantasy in the New York Times. They said nothing about Kathy Griffin. They said nothing about Johnny Depp, Madonna, Snoop Dogg. What else did they do? They fundraised with Bill Ayers. He was an actual terrorist. His co-terrorists blew themselves up. I don't want lectures from these people about civility. They can shove it up their tush. I'm sorry if that's heated rhetoric.
It is heated rhetoric. And
shove it up your tush? No, I thought that was very civil.
I thought that was
tush was a better word than the word I wanted to use.
You know what? I mean, in the reality
I wrote a book. Wait. I wrote a book called Joy of Hate 5 years ago where I talked about this phenomenon of demonization by activists and politicians. I warned this would happen. I wrote 13 chapters on this. We talked about it on this show. So I can't take a lecture from people who ignored me about this concern.
Well, I'm just saying that if you look at Charlottesville, if you look at Pizzagate, there's a real
Those are the ones you always bring up, Juan.
No. I can bring up 50. Always bring them up because I think that's the reality, and it's as opposed to
in
saying,
your filtered
somebody interrupted me. Somebody said you should confront officials. Somebody said
you're not condemning what Maxine Waters said and did, and then said it again and again.
Let me just tell you something. We were out in where were we? We were in Dallas earlier this week. Guy comes up to me, big Trump guy, right? He wants an autograph and a picture. What does he say to me? He says, "I'm one of your trolls. I'm attacking you in your new book and all this stuff," and then calls me a vile name and then asks for a selfie. This is not normal behavior.
That's awful.
To be fair, that was Kilmeade.
But that doesn't mean the president is inciting people, Dana. It doesn't?
Well, here's the thing. I started going back to June 2015, right? When this campaign got started, I was super uncomfortable with the rhetoric, always have been. A lot of people said to me that one of the reasons that President Bush's approval ratings were not what they could have been is because I didn't fight back hard enough with language that would have been tougher. And it just wasn't in my nature. That's just not how I'm doing it. Everybody running for office right now could admit, and they do admit, that the rhetoric is too heated. So everyone has a personal responsibility. Civility is a choice. Every time you open your mouth, you can decide what you want to say.
But Dana, you can't be lectured by them about civility.
I don't feel lectured by anybody.
Yeah.
I don't.
You know how the left has treated conservatives.
I know what they said about President Bush. I believe,
what they've said about women, conservative women.
Well, God, that's a whole list. We could go on. This show would never end if we talked about, if we point by point, but you said that, and then he said that, and she said that, and he said that. It would never end. Last week there was a poll, NBC said 90% of people in America agree that we are too divided right now.
All right.
If 90% of us agree on that, we should be able to actually decide to do something about it.
But hang on one second.
Read Steve Scalise's editorial op-ed. It's great.
We just got some new video of the suspect down in Florida. This is new video that's just coming into our newsroom. So you can obviously see him being let in. He's handcuffed, of course. And we had seen the mugshot earlier today, but this is our first video actually seeing the suspect briefly there as he's taken further into custody. But Juan, I wonder, you've got Joe Biden, the former vice president, thinking about running for president. He said, among other things this week, that he thinks we should lower the temperature. I covered the 2012 campaign, and among other things, he was speaking to a mostly black audience, I remember, and he said that Mitt Romney was going to put you all back in chains. How did that lower the temperature?
No, I think that's heated rhetoric, but it's nowhere near.
But to Greg's point,
why
why is Joe Biden lecturing Donald Trump?
Nobody's lecturing. Everybody's.
Yes, he is.
I don't think so. I think what people are saying is that we are incredibly divided as a country, and we have a president, a leader, who indulges in the kind of demeaning, dehumanizing rhetoric that is damaging to our ability to hear each other, to talk to each other. Instead, we get locked into what Greg was just doing. Whataboutism. Well, you did this.
You've been doing that forever. Whataboutism. That's kind of
also,
ironic.
I think that it's important to say that violence is not, speech is not violence. And we have to be able to separate that. Like we have a First Amendment in this country for a reason. You might not like the rhetoric, but there are people on the fringe that might react to certain things from the left or the right. And we know that happened to Steve Scalise. But nobody said that Bernie Sanders is to blame for that.
Or MSNBC.
I see this as the same.
You know what's interesting is somebody said it only takes one crackpot, right?
Yeah.
So are we going to change the way we are, a 330 million population, to do the favor for one crackpot? We better look. And the other point is everybody's lying about civil discourse. The people that are saying we need to tone it, they are lying. I believe you, Juan. I think you feel that way, but I don't think the Democrats, the moment they get a chance to screw you from behind, they will. They do that politically. They will say horrible things about you during campaigns. At least Trump does it to your face. That's the most transparent insult you will ever get. Comes from him. Isn't that healthier?
Greg, what do you think, though, about all these conspiracy theories, these false flag theories coming from leading conservative voices this week?
It's foolish.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we agree.
Meanwhile,
I disagree.
You can do it agreeably. President Trump, meanwhile, considering a bold plan to stop the caravan of migrants. Details on that coming up next.
All about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass,
They've upset Greg with that song.
It's the worst song ever, and they keep using it.
What? You don't like it? All right. President Trump is considering signing an executive order that would stop migrants and asylum seekers traveling in the caravan from entering the U.S. The president commented on the issue earlier today at the White House.
Well, they called up the military. We're not letting them in. They ought to go back now because we're not. Now, do we want them to apply and come in legally? Absolutely. Yes. And millions of people are right now waiting, and they've been working this process for, in some cases, 10 years. And they're almost ready to come in, and then they look on television and they see people just walking in. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
This caravan development comes as a new poll shows the midterms will be all about Trump. Roughly two-thirds of voters say the president will be a key factor when they cast their ballots. Now, Pam, the president today was saying, all the political talk on TV is about the bomber. Hey, what about the caravan? And hey, Republicans, get out there and vote. How should we understand what the president is saying?
Well, former President Obama was out there and didn't even mention the bomber campaigning. The midterms are happening whether you want them to or not, Juan, and people have got to get out there and vote. The president's statements were completely appropriate. They've caught the guy today. And now he's moving on, and he's campaigning as hard as he can. He's going to every state. He's going to be in Florida again, North Carolina, and working very hard on the midterms. At least he's addressed it. President Obama didn't even address it.
Well, I'm not sure it was in the, I think the president is Donald Trump, not Barack Obama at the moment. But Ed Henry.
Thank goodness.
Ed Henry, what we see is that in the numbers right now, this is all about Trump. And we see a high proportion. It says 64% of the people who say, two-thirds of voters say that they're basically voting pro or anti-Trump, but 64% say they would vote for the Democrats to oppose or have a check on Trump. 32% said they would vote to support President Trump. What do you make of this?
What I make is that he's the Republicans' best weapon in these midterms. And so it was a risk, it was a gamble by the White House to nationalize these elections. People like to vote for their local congressman or woman based on some of the local issues. When you nationalize it, it's risky. And there was a New York Times piece a few weeks ago saying this is going to blow up in the Republicans' face. And there was a New York Times I think the opposite has happened. I think the president's rallies have had a real impact in these battleground states. And evidence of that was today, the Washington Post had this piece where they went to California, where there's something like 8 critical House races, and the Democrats think they're going to flip 5 or 6 of them. And they interviewed all these voters who said, actually, we don't think the Democrats are going to win a lot of these races. And these Democratic voters are nervous that it's going to be like election 2016 redux, where they're going to be left crying like they were on election night at Hillary Clinton's headquarters. So these were Democrats in the Washington Post saying Trump has gotten out there, President Trump, and has lit up his base between Kavanaugh, the caravan, the other issues that he's focused on. And Democrats may not like it, but he has nationalized the election. Yes, he's made it about himself, for better or for worse, and it's fired up Republicans.
And it's working.
Dana, so what the poll, this is an NPR poll, also showed is Democrats rank health care number 1, climate change, the economy. But for Republicans, it's jobs, the economy, and then immigration.
So the other aspect here is Latino voters. The interesting information out today, like they don't feel like they're being addressed by Democrats, that they are not just monolithic voters on one thing, on immigration. It's not motivating them to get out to vote. So Democrats are worried a little bit about that. And the thing about the caravan is that it is visual. Okay, so President Obama saying that he wanted to send troops to the border is like the same thing as President Trump doing it. It just happens to be a week before the midterms, but the caravan is there. But it's not about the caravan, though. And I think the White House could do a better job of explaining to people it's the daily assault on the border of 640 or so average attempts a day to cross the border. So in addition to the caravan, there's all of these things happening there. And I think that President Trump will start to try to get something with Mexico like he has with Canada, which is Canada agrees to deal with asylum seekers in Canada. People that want to come into the United States. Canada says, we will process them here. We should have the same thing in Mexico, and President Trump has an opportunity with the new leader that's taking over in December or January in Mexico. He could try to do that because this issue is something interesting for the midterms. It's not the number 1 issue for everybody, but it will motivate some people.
Greg?
Yeah, I think it'll be, no one's going to talk about this in a few days. That's what I think. But I think it's what Trump said was very important because he mentioned the word process. And when he explained it as a process, you could understand the idea of line cutting, that if you're in the process for 10 years trying to become a citizen and you see this, you think, you sense that it is unfair. And the Democrats are anti-process, and that's why they can push these foolish ideas and then demean those against them. Because they know the Republicans will get the job done. They know they're going to protect the border. They know that the agents will be out there. So they can actually romanticize a terrible idea knowing that the Republicans will actually fix the problem. And it's sad because it's not going to end well for those poor people that are marching along. They're the pawns in all this. They're the pawn. Left-wing activists and politicians have pushed them along, and they're not going to get in. Maybe a few of them will. They will all be turned back.
All right. Anti-Trump lawyer Michael Avenatti could be in some very, very big trouble. We'll fill you in next on The Fight.
Big trouble could be brewing for Michael Avenatti. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley has referred the anti-Trump lawyer and his client Julie Swetnick for criminal investigation for potential conspiracy to provide false statements to Congress for obstructing the investigation of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. I think his 5 minutes of fame are about over, Avenatti.
Yeah, I don't know who's having a worse week, him or Megyn Kelly. But you know, if you notice Avenatti, he follows a plan. He finds somebody that he wants to be perceived as a victim, and uses that victim to catapult himself to the spotlight. So first it was Stormy, then it was Swetnick, who was obviously suspicious, and then he does, like we challenged somebody to a fight, Donald Jr., and he said it would all go to charity. So he's always using that to get higher and higher. How does he skate by ethics committees?
In fact, he might need the money from a fight like that to pay the rent at his
My
office.
money's on Don Jr.
Apparently, he was 4 months behind on his rent at his office.
Yeah.
Then he had a former partner he owes millions of dollars. He says he's going to appeal it. So that's the bad week you're talking about. And look, this is America. Guess what? Innocent until proven guilty, as we saw for Justice Kavanaugh. And if you come up with false charges, where in the case of Julie Swetnick, the story kept changing, there might be consequences.
And Dana, what about it? He said to Time Magazine, which he's now denying, and there's a transcript of, that it would be better for a white male to be the Democrat presidential candidate.
I'm not sure how you deny something that's in a transcript.
Exactly. I think he's making a run in 2020.
He definitely wants to run for president, but he makes headlines for all the wrong reasons. And instead of becoming the Democrats' version of Trump, he's just a discredited carnival barker. And the Democrats should start to distance themselves from him, because he's actually taking up a lot of time and energy, and they have no message at all.
I am a credited carnival barker.
Well, those are the best
You take exception to
But
that?
I do think when the history books are written, what Avenatti did during the Kavanaugh hearings, it was the pivot point for when people started to support Kavanaugh and believe him.
So I don't want to support Kavanaugh. I don't even know that Democrats have ever embraced Kavanaugh, but I do want to say Avenatti. But I do want to say that you're not a carnival barker. You're a Juan barker. You bark at me. But I do wonder why Grassley referred this to the justice. It made me uncomfortable, despite all the questions we have about Avenatti, because it looks like you're going after a political opponent. No. The deal is settled. Kavanaugh's
they went after a political opponent.
If you mislead a Senate committee, there should be consequences. I'm not saying he did.
I don't
look at it.
Maybe he said, hey, this girl said something to me,
but wait, the whole thing about Kavanaugh was that the left was saying he perjured himself and that was punishable by the Justice Department. Avenatti lied to the Justice Committee.
I don't know that.
That's why they referred it to the Justice Department.
But I'm saying, is it the case that he said, hey, this young woman says she has a case, and now they're sending him to the Justice Department? It seems a little like
she provided a sworn statement and then went on NBC News and said things that were totally different.
That's a problem.
And they were trying to seek the truth, and then they had to go off on this red herring that proved to be ridiculous.
Yeah, we're doing Fan Mail Friday. It's up next. It's one of the fans of the Fan Mail.
Fan Mail Friday is up next, according to Greg Gutfeld.
About yourself, Dana, but it's just too ingrained. This is from Richard T. Great question.
I do wish I didn't have that misophonia, the thing where I have super sensitive hearing and everything bothers me.
Oh, really? There's a name for it.
Misophonia.
You would look it up, wouldn't you?
So somebody sent it. Ingrid sent it to me.
Oh,
she has it too.
When you first said that, I thought you were talking about that thing they always advertise on Fox. What is it, methicillin?
Yeah, that's something.
No. That's actually a serious disease.
You're just extra sensitive hearing.
Yes, and it bothers me, like when people crinkle papers or.
You're like a superhero. Your hearing power,
You should really utilize me.
Yeah, I think you should.
Were you in a concert in Sweden the other day?
I would have been that person.
Yeah.
Ed?
I wish I was less awesome.
You know what? You're a fine fill-in for Jesse. I'll tell you that. You need to make your hair a little higher.
And you're humble.
This
is my world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Juan?
Less anxious. When that thing about baseball players that they say, if you think, you stink. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I just overthink. I just gotta cool it out.
I hear you. I'm that way. Pam?
I am a human lie detector, and it's not good though, because I know when someone's lying all the time, and I
don't believe you.
I don't. It's bad though. It's bad.
Hey, that's not Donald
I wish
Trump,
my senses weren't that heightened. It's horrible.
You know what mine is?
What would you change?
Oh, I'm. What?
Which one? Travel anxiety.
Well, I'm the most impatient person probably ever on the planet, which makes me anxious. Impatience and anxiousness go together. That's why
Aren't we the pair?
We are. I think we should quit the 5 and open a bed and breakfast in Vermont.
We would drive them out.
Yes.
Oh,
just
boy.
get it out in the open. Stop this lie, Juan.
I'm telling you.
I know. Okay, Frenchie Firecracker, you remember, asks, this is a great question, too. What product would you stockpile if you found out it was not going to be sold anymore? Ed, self-tanner?
Tom Ford cologne.
Ooh.
I love that cologne.
Interesting. You should wear it.
I would also get deodorant. I don't have that.
My wife actually had this problem because she couldn't find Bonomo's Turkish taffy. So I went everywhere searching for Bonomo's Turkish taffy for Delise. But then the other day, I ordered a box load of Atomic Fireballs because I couldn't.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, those are good. Maybelline Great Lash Mascara and Williams & Sonoma Hot Chocolate. It only comes out at Christmas time, and I already stockpile it
Wow.
for the whole year. It's
You're the one that keeps making it sell out.
Buy it out.
Dana?
Retain eye drops, like the for dry eyes.
I would say it's a tie between ZzzQuil and Atkins Chocolate Royale drink.
Oh, I don't like.
Yes, you do. It's a
I don't
sponsor.
like the drink. I like the brownies.
It's delicious.
Like
but the ZzzQuil is amazing. It should be illegal. It's NyQuil for sleep.
For sleep.
It should be illegal.
Don't take it
It's that
before
good.
Fox and Friends, though.
Do I have more time for one more? No?
Yeah.
All right. What 80s teen movie best describes your high school years, Juan?
So I had to check with Ed because I forgot, but it's White Shadow because when I was playing basketball in high school, I was playing for a great team, and the coach really was a great mentor.
That was a TV series, but I'll take that.
Okay.
Pam?
I wish it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it's probably more 16 Candles.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I wanted to order the pizza. Like Spicoli.
I'm going to say Pretty in Pink.
Of course you would.
Love that.
Yeah. I'm going to say
Long
Blue...
Duck Dong, remember him?
Oh, yes, of course.
Great
Say that
character.
again. All right, I'm going to say Blue Velvet.
Oh.
There you go. All right, one more thing up next. About yourself, Dana, but it's just too ingrained. This is from Richard T. Great question.
I do wish I didn't have that misophonia, the thing of where like I have super sensitive hearing and everything bothers me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a name for it.
Misophonia.
You would look it up, wouldn't you?
So somebody sent it. Ingrid sent it to me.
Oh.
She has it too.
When you first said that, I thought you were talking about that thing they always advertise on Fox. What is it, methicillin?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
something.
no. That's actually a serious disease.
You're just extra sensitive hearing.
Yes, and it bothers me, like when people crinkle papers or.
You're like a superhero. Your hearing power, yeah.
They should really utilize me.
Yeah, I think you should.
Were you in a concert in Sweden the other day?
I would have been that person.
Yeah.
Ed?
I wish I was less awesome.
You know what? You're a fine fill-in for Jesse. I'll tell you that. You need to make your hair a little higher.
And you're humble.
This
is my world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Juan?
Less anxious. You know, you know that thing about baseball players that they say if you think you stink. And sometimes I just overthink. I just gotta like cool it out.
I hear you. I'm that way. Pam?
I am a human lie detector, and it's not good though because I know when someone's lying all the time, and I
don't believe you.
I don't. It's bad though. It's bad.
Hey, that's not Donald
I wish
Trump,
my
you know.
senses weren't that heightened. It's horrible.
What's you know what mine is?
What would you change?
Oh, I'm. What?
Which one? Your travel anxiety.
Well, I'm the most impatient person probably ever on the planet, which makes me anxious. Impatience and anxiousness go together. That's why
Aren't we the pair?
We are. I think we should quit the 5 and open a bed and breakfast in Vermont.
You guys could do that
would drive them out.
Yes.
Oh,
Just
boy.
get it out in the open. Stop this lie, Juan.
I'm telling you.
I know. Okay, Frenchie Firecracker, you remember, asks, this is a great question, too. What product would you stockpile if you found out it was not going to be sold anymore? Ed, self-tanner?
Tom Ford cologne.
Ooh.
I love that cologne.
Interesting. You should wear it.
I would also get deodorant. I don't have that.
You know, my wife actually had this problem because she couldn't find Bonomo's Turkish taffy. And, so I went everywhere searching for Bonomo's Turkish taffy for Delise. But then the other day, I ordered a box load of atomic fireballs because I couldn't.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, those are good. Maybelline Great Lash Mascara and Williams & Sonoma Hot Chocolate. It only comes out at Christmas time, and I already stockpile it for the whole year.
You're the one that keeps making it sell out.
Buy it out.
Dana?
Retain eye drops, like the for dry eyes.
I would say it's a tie between ZzzQuil and Atkins Chocolate Royale drink.
Oh, I don't like.
Yes, you do. It's a sponsor.
I don't like the drink. I like the brownies.
It's delicious.
Like
but the ZzzQuil is amazing. It should be illegal. It's NyQuil for sleep.
For sleep.
It should be illegal.
Don't take
It's
it
that
before
good.
Fox and Friends, though.
Do I have more time for one more? No?
Yeah.
All right. What 80s teen movie best describes your high school years, Juan?
So I had to check with Ed because I forgot, but it's White Shadow because when I was playing basketball in high school, I was playing for a great team, and the coach really was a great mentor.
That was a TV series, but I'll take that.
Okay.
Pam?
I wish it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it's probably more 16 Candles.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I wanted to order the pizza. Like Spicoli.
I'm going to say Pretty in Pink.
Of course you would.
Love that.
Yeah. I'm going to say
Long
Blue...
Duck Dong, remember him?
Oh, yes, of course.
Great
Say that
character.
again. All right, I'm going to say Blue Velvet.
Oh.
There you go. All right, one more thing up next. About yourself, Dana, but it's just too ingrained. This is from Richard T. Great question.
I do wish I didn't have that misophonia, the thing where like I have super sensitive hearing and everything bothers me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a name for it.
Misophonia.
You would look it up, wouldn't you?
So somebody sent it. Ingrid sent it to me.
Oh.
She has it too.
When you first said that, I thought you were talking about that thing they always advertise on Fox. What is it, methicillin?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
something.
no, that's actually a serious disease.
You're just extra sensitive hearing.
Yes, and it bothers me, like when people crinkle papers or...
You're like a superhero. Your hearing power,
They should really utilize me.
Yeah, I think you should.
Were you in a concert in Sweden the other day?
I would have been that person.
Yeah.
Ed?
I wish I was less awesome.
You know what? You're a fine fill-in for Jesse. I'll tell you that. You need to make your hair a little higher.
And you're humble.
This is my world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Juan?
Less anxious.
Mm,
you know,